Thanks, everyone. I think the audience is a little bit light, but we'll try and keep this as entertaining and as useful as possible to the audience. First up, I thought it will be I'm delighted to have the panelists here come from varying backgrounds. A couple of them, from companies that are advising other companies on how to use generative AI for the business benefits, and a couple of companies that are actually developing software and products that are used by companies in the generative AI space. So exciting to talk to them about the experience benefits that they're able to deliver to their customers through the products. So maybe a quick round of introduction, your background, so that people understand the context with which you're speaking will be useful. So, Praveen, if you could start, we'll just do a quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd written a lot, but I thought it will be better that you guys speak about it.
Happy to. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you, Business World, for giving us the opportunity to be here today. Super excited about the entire theme. I think this is the need of the hour to talk about Gen AI at stretch and figure out the art of the possible here. Just as a background, I work as the head of generative AI at Persistent Systems. We are a global digital engineering and enterprise modernization provider, about $1 billion in revenue and 7 billion plus in market capitalization. Been in the industry for about 34 years now, and as the name suggests, right, we've been deeply rooted. Our inception, right from our inception, we've been focused on solving complex data-related problems for our customers. So Gen AI happens to be a natural extension of what all value propositions that we bring to our customers. So super excited to be leading this charter and hoping that this becomes the key vector of sustainable growth at Persistent. We are one of the fastest growing IT services company in our space, Indian origin, Indian heritage. So again, a proud moment in that sense, shining bright in the global, market landscape. Prior to this, I was actually working as the chief of staff for the CEO, looking at all kinds of other strategic programs and vectors of growth. Obviously, Gen AI was a conversation for the last 15 months, and here am I looking at this and trying to figure things out and work very collaboratively with our customers and ecosystem to unlock business value. Thank you once again, and look forward to the chat today.
So I'm Jigar. I lead the product team at RagaAI. At RagaAI, what we are building is a testing platform for all AI applications. We think that testing is something that most developers excel at when it comes to regular software. But when building and deploying AI applications, it's a big gap in the industry where we don't know what to test for, how to ensure that AI is robust, safe before putting it in production and ensuring it stays that way. So we are building an automated platform, first of its kind, to automatically detect issues with AI, diagnose them, and provide actionable recommendations. And in order to do that, we have a very comprehensive test suite on our platform, which includes issue identification across data problems, across model problems, operational details, and integration problems. So that's the product we're building at RagaAI. It's designed for both data scientists as well as people developing AI applications and validation and verification teams. Before RagaAI, I've built machine learning AI applications in the finance industry and also in the autonomous vehicles industry. So I think we have seen all the pain associated with putting AI out in production, 10 years of building autonomous vehicles and nothing in production. So we are leveraging on all of that pain and experience and making a very scientific process to get AI and Gen AI out to the world in the best way possible.
Hi, everybody. I'm Arjun, and thank you, Business World, for giving us this opportunity to showcase what we're doing and get everybody to catch up on what's happening from various parts of the country. And I co-founded HaiVE, which is a on-premise AI company. And we believe that any company that wants to use AI should be building their own and hosting it themselves. And either it's on-premise or private cloud or in any way they form. So the idea is that we've all seen, we can go ahead and name it, Swiggy or any other kind of service, where they come in and they disrupt the industry and they say that they make your lives easy and they get all the hotels to list their inventory with them, and they get all the people to be able to order and get things delivered to them very easily. Now, what's happened at the end of the day is that they now know what any suburb is going to order for breakfast that day. And they open cloud kitchens with exactly those inventory items. And they've now become they're going to probably become the largest restaurant in India with all the data. So that's the thing with data that we never want to depend on a third-party provider for. And that's what we're trying to help companies. And we are right now working with BFS sector companies in Australia and some in India as well. And so we, for example, one of our customers have their entire call center in a box right now. And they want to open up a new state for their service. It's already there. They have like 10 people attending calls in Bengali or any new language that they want overnight. And so it's incredible scale, and the data is still with them. Even we don't have access to it once we've set it up. So that's the way we want people to embrace AI. And cheers. Thanks for having me.
My name is Lokesh. I represent Konverz.ai here. We essentially are a behavioral and language research organization. So we have a background of almost 10 to 15 years in actually analyzing and researching behavior, human behavior and language, so the human spoken language. So we have leveraged the language analysis in the form of conversational intelligence and created something called Konverz.ai, which essentially is a conversation intelligence engine, which actually does a lot of psycholinguistics. So psycholinguistics is a field where language is analyzed to predict human behavior, predict human traits, predict a lot of things that humans would value as their skills. So we are leveraging that part of it in the human resource applications. And as you know, there is a huge challenge when it comes to standardization and bias-free recruitments. So, when I say bias-free, a human agent is always biased towards caste, color, creed, variety of things that a human can be biased with. We actually leverage psycholinguistics to remove some of those biases and even language biases. So, people can actually interview on our conversational intelligence platform in any language, and we can analyze the behaviors and skills. So what we are doing is pretty interesting. The psycholinguistics actually predicts the job fit, and it actually reduces the entire use case or scenario from screening till initial recruiting or initial interviewing of candidates. So that reduces like 70% of the work and maybe 60% of the costs that you incur in hiring, and also reduces the time of hire by about 50%. So we actually leveraged our research, and some of this is in the process of being patented. So we are actually working on patents in psycholinguistics and in the area of job fit AI, which we have actually created for this particular mechanism. We have some partners like Acceleri and some of the best in psycholinguistics globally who are helping us with the process as well. So out of India, because our subject is about India, we actually want to create a science and research-based AI system out of India. That's what we are not working on application layer. We are not working on, the layer of how it should be done. We are actually working on deep research. And that's what we want to do in the next 2 to 3 years.
Good evening all. I'm Karthikeyan, Girijanandan. I head the products and platform engineering within Ascendion. Ascendion is a digital engineering solutions firm. We are a COVID-born company. So we are digitally native, and obviously AI comes first. So whatever work that we do, all our offerings, we put AI first. So it's an engineering to the power of AI. That's our core mantra. And we bring in different solutions, AI solutions like business solutions, engineering solutions, and internal enterprise solutions through AI. Now with the GenAI, we infused all those things into all our existing offerings, which we are already doing with AI. So we also created our own product, which is actually a platform, to be say, which caters to the engineering as a service. So any of the engineering work that what we are doing goes as part of a platform. We call it as AVA. Now with the GenAI infusion to that, it becomes AVA Plus. So it actually does all the engineering work in a more productive way.
Like GPT plus.
Like GPT plus, yeah. So and then what we do is, right, like we do consulting and do advisory to all our clients, and then also do take them to the roadmap of the complete implementation path. So we bring in and then tell them, right, like how to make their enterprise as a GenAI enterprise. And we make the GenAI real, giving the GenAI into the hands of all the stakeholders for easy consumption. So that's what our platform does, and we are very proud to do that too, actually. Thanks for that.
Fantastic, thanks. So I'm Kiran from Cigniti, about $250 million in company, doing primarily services. I'll not go beyond that. But just putting things in context, about a year into the launch of ChatGPT, Bill Gates said that this is perhaps the most revolutionary, sort of leap in the technologies from the time the graphical user interface was invented or discovered. Despite the monstrosity of the statement, I still think it is, it doesn't do justice to what ChatGPT has been able to accomplish since the time he made that comment. Based on some of the stats that I've collected, GPT-4 can beat 90% of the lawyers trying to pass a bar exam. It can create, what you can really see through a brain scan. And most people believe that the cost of digital products in the future, because of so much of automation, is literally going to become zero. And basis this, I'm going to ask a couple of questions, based on this. So there is art generation, there is music composition, there is drug discovery, and things like that. But personalization, and this is a question, Praveen, if you could answer, and maybe others can chime in as well. Personalization based on what's consumed before, been there, done that. That's identifying patterns, recognizing what people have done before, and trying to evolve an experience for the next customer based on what's already been there, done that. But do you see GenAI particularly helping in creating new experiences that have never created before? That's where I think that, if there is a merit in calling GenAI truly revolutionary, then it may be able to, will it be able to do it? If it can, do you see that happening at all?
Yeah, I think great question. The straight off the bat answer is yes, GenAI has the potential to be able to do that. I think that's the most obvious one. The reason I believe in that is because if you look at what hasn't changed in the experience part of it, right? Experience to my mind ultimately boils down to three things, right? The context of the individual, which is the personalization aspect of it. The convenience that you can provide to the user. And the personal care that you can give, right? So the three C's, very simply put together, right? Those are sacrosanct, right? Technology waves have come and gone, but any user, when you think of the experience, it's boxed into these three C's, right? The context, the convenience, and the care, right? So that is not changing. That probably is not going to change even in the world of GenAI, right? And any other new technology that will come over the years. What has changed, though, in the last 5 to 10 years is the fact that the customer loyalty is on an all-time low, right? Customers are the most disloyal today, right? You don't think twice before changing your provider, partner, vendor, whatever products, etc. Right? So because the optionality is there. The second thing that has really changed is the channels through which you engage with brands, right? It used to be largely offline. Today we are all fairly well aware about the omni-channel kind of way of doing things, right? And those are the two things that primarily are changing in the way any experience get delivered, right? So the intersection of the three C's and the two disruptions in the form of these new types of channels and the broken loyalty about products, I think is the point where GenAI can create massive disruption. Obviously, the historic way of doing things, looking at historical trends, past data, AI, ML, the world of AI, ML actually did a great job at solving some of that, predicting, analyzing historical things, etc. The potential of GenAI is really in terms of creating new experiences, right? Creating new content, creating new marketing material, creating newer ways of engagement, maybe even creating newer ways of experience, right? We all use phones today, for example. I'm pretty sure 10 years down the line, you won't be interacting through a phone, right? Your devices like this table could be a phone, right? And the reason I believe so is because um, biometrics like facial recognition, my voice, could actually be connected to a sensor on the table, and it can automatically figure out who to dial based on my personality, right? So all of those things are possible, and those can only happen with the revolutionary aspect of GenAI that you talked about, right? I think people have tried these things, imagined these things in sci-fi movies, but I think some of that is starting to become real. In the next 10 years, I think it's going to be fundamentally different in terms of the kinds of experiences, the devices, the tools, the products that you use. We'll go deeper into this, but I just want to start with those broad level thoughts in terms of what's not changing in experience and why disruption is coming in, which is where GenAI can potentially play a big role.
Nice, something that I think is very appropriate to how you think about experience per se. I think, from again, just noting down some points that I came across over the internet, if you look at the evolution of the technologies itself, steam engines probably disrupted the world in a large manner. Electricity, GenAI seems to have created the most impact, And Lokesh, from taking that as a cue, so the true unlocking of AI is not within the technology itself, but it's in the ways it can enhance human potential is what I think perhaps that we are seeing as GenAI being different, Obviously, you're working with something that is very close to humans, amongst the bunch of us here. So could you tell us if that's probably why it's that much more impactful?
Having actually thought a lot about it in the last year in particular and many years before that, I have my own 3Cs on this. So if you look at the AI, and for a large part of next decade or even next 2 decades, or maybe even 3 decades, it largely will be about human enablement rather than changing the human, or displacing the human. And where is it augmenting the human? It is augmenting the human in decision making. So if you really look at a human and analyze what motion does a human go through the day? The human works, human handles some information, and human takes some decisions. Correct? These are the 3 things. So work can be in context of personal life or in context of professional life, but essentially these are the 3 things that a human does. All 3 can be augmented by different aspects of technology. The work and information already disrupted. We have seen that in Industry 4.0, even in 3.0, humans have been augmented. The way they work, they can use robots or they can use automated systems, etc. Information disruption started happening almost 30, 40 years ago as we had started having devices, computers. Now, decision enablement is more recent. And if you see generative AI for example, psycholinguistics that we are doing is all part of enabling decisions. So I'm enabling a decision that a human is taking. And in its rudimentary form, it can be filling up the fridge when the quantities are low, So, and in its higher form, it can be looking at certain parameters and pre-deciding for a human. So that's how it goes. Now, if you see 3C disruption, which I have my own version, is human uses the mind, which is cognition. Human connects with others, which is about connections. And human is about consciousness, which is irreplaceable. You cannot really replace human consciousness. So if you look at cognition, AI or generative AI, and then the subsequent versions of AI, we know GPT-5, what is going to come, and what is going to come in the future, few years down the line, as you rightly said also. So cognition is going to have a massive augmentation. The thinking power is going to be 1,000,000 times, maybe, from a human aspect. So I can make decisions faster, quicker, better, looking at more scenarios, how the outcomes will impact me, etc., etc. Connectedness already done, all the social media revolution is essentially about connectedness and how it has enhanced connection globally. You've created a global village out of connections. I don't know how much of those connections are actually real connections, but at least virtual connections. There are infinite, and we work on social connections as a theory, So the whole social network as a theory. So how that has enhanced human decision making itself. But the third one is very crucial, and I think in our society, and when we talk about India in particular, from a human perspective, we should invest in that third revolution, which is the consciousness revolution. How can we now use our free time to enable humans to do better things? Because somewhere empty mind is a devil's whatever. So how do we make use of these empty minds is going to be a very, very crucial question. And from the point of view of products, we have one kind of solutions and products today which are enabling the connections, which are enabling the cognition, but we definitely need much more. And I think which is a completely parallel field of revolution, mindfulness, consciousness, using all this information and decision making wisely. So that's what I feel. Yeah.
It's something that is very close to my heart. We will talk about that in more detail, and maybe if we have the time, we'll probably probe into that as well. But Arjun, just AI, MLS technologies have been great at framing, decisions based on past data and trying to help you decide on the present. But do you think the personalization experience can be taken further using some of the Gen AI abilities? What's the sort of experience that it might be able to offer in the future as you sort of embrace some of these Gen AI-based technologies?
Thank you, Kiran. I guess a lot of students who are in rural locations don't get really good teachers to come over there because, ambitious people want to go to metro and better cities where their own livelihoods can improve, and it's not their fault. So since Google and all these, the internet and the whole phenomenon happened, data was available on demand, not the information. So Google will just throw a PDF at you and say, hey, you asked something, and I found traces of that here, and more authoritatively said here and here. But now what you can do is you can give that link to ChatGPT and say, hey, digest this for me, and teach it to me like I'm a 10-year-old. And embracing this philosophy, what we have done is that we've launched something called, so you all know Devin, the world's first autonomous software engineer. We have created Muller teacher, world's first autonomous professor. So she lives in an E2E server, and she is well versed with all of Anna University's curriculum, all engineering disciplines. And you can chat with her on WhatsApp. She can answer you about 24 questions per day in a 24-hour period in the free tier. And if you want more than that, or if you want sample examinations to be conducted, you will have to pay her through UPI in WhatsApp itself. And we've worked out with Mohan, who's CEO of Ipopay, who's a UPI startup based in Chennai. And the money that comes in directly goes and pays for her livelihood to E2E. So she's completely autonomous, and she lives inside of a GPU. She touches so many lives, and you can take. I mean, even when I was doing engineering, Mathematics 3, M3 paper was the toughest that a lot of seniors carried on with their even final semester. So all of those concepts can be broken down and taught really in a way that they would respond. So we've taught Muller to talk to and respond back to people for example, when you talk to a AI, we have so much data that's coming out of it. So we are counting the number of words that you're saying in a minute, and we're trying to match that so that you have a better rapport with the AI, and you connect well with the tone and the pace of the student. So she immediately knows if you're a backbencher or a frontbencher, and imagine you having your favorite teacher in the entire world teaching you all the subjects, and that would make a world of difference for the students, both in metro and rural regions where there is actual lack of it. And so that's what we've done.
Sounds a bit scary, but brilliant thought. On how people can benefit. Profound impact that you could possibly create. Because I could be chatting with it any time of the day and still be getting an expert feedback on some of the points that I need guidance on. Brilliant. Thanks. Were you going to say something else? Done? Okay. Cool. Karthik, if I could maybe take your input on how the underlying technology architecture is shaping up to be able to deliver such exceptional experiences. I keep hearing that, and this is something that I've been and I have had the privilege of having multiple conversations with my team internally. This whole notion of three-tiered architecture or n-tiered architecture, whatever you may call it, is GenAI going to disrupt every layer? Is three-tier architecture relevant anymore at all? Or is it just the experience part of it, no, just the communication part of it, NLG part of it, or NLP part of it that GenAI is trying to help? If you could shed some light on how you're seeing the architecture itself evolve to be able to provide these exceptional experiences that others have been able to talk about, that will help us.
Great question, right? So three-tier architecture and a n-tier, right? After Fast and Furious 10, there's going to be a Fast X sequel. That's what it's all about, n-tier, right? So
Good one.
the three-tier architecture is still going to stay. So we cannot see this GenAI as another layer of architecture, right? Rather, what we will be seeing that as an infusion of GenAI into each of those layers. So literally, GenAI is going to act as a sidecar for all the components that's lying in each of those layers. So let's take an example for the personalization that what he talked about. How does the personalization architecture need to look like, right? So typically, you will be having a content delivery layer where it provides the personalized content to different users and different touch points. And you're going to have an intermediate layer where the core business logic and some kind of input orchestration need to happen. And there is a data layer which is going to provide you the information, right? These are all the three layers anyway, right? So how does GenAI can get infused into all these three layers? GenAI can get infused into the data layer to provide dynamic insights on the information retrieval. And it can be infused in the business layer to actually provide or make the decisions, right? Like what Lokesh was mentioning, right? So you can make the decisions on the fly, dynamic decision making. And on the content delivery area, it can generate the dynamic content. So there's no more fixed content, right? Let's take an example of an e-commerce website, right? So typically, if you go, what kind of personalization it does, based on your demographics and your past purchase history and things like that, right? I was actually browsing a fashion website, I don't want to name it, right? But for getting a dress for my wife for a birthday party. But unfortunately, even after I browsed certain women dresses, when I searched for a dress for a birthday party, it still showed me the shirts and pants that I bought already, right? So I cannot get that for my wife. So the personalization still is at the historical data level, right? So how can we make this more real time? Does AI does that? Yes, AI can do it, but GenAI can do it even more better. The sophisticated way of doing things, right? So it actually, what it does is, right? So when the input comes from the user, the GenAI can automatically create the prompts based on the browsing context that I have already did. Not just with the historical data, rather it can consider the browsing context and feed in that information to the data layer. And data layer, which has an historical information about me, can also apply the real-time context what it's been fed from the business layer to give a meaningful insights. So when it all get passed back to the content delivery, it can generate the product description in a very lively manner. And also think about how it can give an image which is actually with the dress, with the birthday party happening in the backend. Today, that's not happening, right? Like all the product descriptions and the images are all predefined. So how can it make it even more personalized? And that actually increases the engagement, right? Like, so as he was mentioning, there's no more loyalty, right? So it's all about how you can engage the shopper at that particular session with maximum interest. So that architecture is going to lie the same for all these apps. But to add to the another point, think about, right, like I talked about an e-commerce app. That's a one part of it, right? There is a whole user journey that happens when it comes to the personalization. It's acquire, engage, retain, right? Like convert and retain, right? So we talked about engaging part of it. Right? What about other systems? Everybody creates these kind of GenAI into their own applications, and that's where the challenge comes in. We talk about omnichannel and unified experience across all channels. When every system start building their own GenAI solutions, we'll end up in the same problem what we have with today with the data. There are a lot of silos. and there is an information asymmetry across that. So how can we address that is where we need to build a centralized governance GenAI platform which can feed in or create applications in such a way that those GenAI applications or GenAI services can orchestrate between themselves or talk to each other between themselves. So that's the other part of it, right? Like, so one from the consumption angle, another from the administration angle. So that's how the architecture need to slightly change. The governance and centralized governance and the control takes more precedence rather than the consumption part itself.
And Jigar, so I was thinking, obviously you are a product company and you work with companies that are using your product for the testing of the GenAI/LLMs that they use. So tell us how you are able to set up these guardrails so that it's not the experience that eventually the company that is using your product is delivering to the end customer is not compromised in any manner, it's not intrusive in any manner. How is it able to manage privacy and stuff like that? And if you could just shed some light on that, that will help.
That's a great question, a really top of the mind concern for anybody building and deploying GenAI or AI solutions in production right now. Many dimensions of quality are important, one of them being hallucinations, right? We keep hearing about it all the time, like GenAI making up answers which are not based in fact, or if you're using a RAG application, not based in past data context DB. So so that's an example. There are multiple metrics and ways of trying to see if like GenAI is trying to make up answers. None of these are perfect, but all of the dimensions of evaluation I'm talking about are active areas of research. So that is where our team and R&D efforts are focused on. But at the same time, even today, we are able to catch 80 to 90% of possible hallucinations by just monitoring for that in real time using state-of-the-art systems. So that's one on hallucinations and output quality and accuracy. Guardrails that you mentioned, right, are important when it comes to another dimension of quality, which is like bias, toxicity, fairness. So trying to understand when somebody puts in a prompt to an LLM application or a GenAI application, if there is bias inherent in the prompt itself, right, or if there is any toxic question that is being asked. So doing that sanitization in real time at a prompt level, also when output is generated from the LLMs, doing that sanitization again at a response level are big pieces of the LLM application pipeline already, right? You don't build an LLM application or a LLM pipeline without putting these necessary components into your framework today. So that's a big piece. Privacy, we talked about, is another important guardrail. So there are things like detection of PII violation. So if there is, let's say you have a customer database, right, of who has purchased what over the years, and like you're asking, somebody else is asking, why are you recommending me this, right, to a chatbot? The chatbot can actually throw up because so-and-so is very much like you, and they bought this at this point in time. You don't want that information to get out, right? So detecting that PII, which is being fetched and generated as part of the response. So we have guardrails that are available on our platform that our customers use and set up in order to prevent those problems. And by the way, many of these things are open source. So that's a big piece. The third dimension is adversarial attacks, right? I mean, the potential of an adversary, if you're working in some critical application, to use or try and trick your AI system. So that's another important dimension of quality. There are plenty of evaluation methods and as well as algorithmic solutions in order to prevent things like red teaming, prompt injection attacks, data corruption attacks, and so on and so forth. So all of these things are things that, like, POCs are great. A lot of the world is focused right now on conducting POCs. But as soon as we start thinking about moving that from that POC to a production stage production grade LLM application and actually serving customers, these are like first order concerns that need to be solved.
Thank you. A few points that I made note of, but I'll go back to Praveen. And Praveen, maybe we probably have less than 5 minutes, so I'll request everyone to keep their answers within a minute's time. But I just wanted to check as to, any transformation program generally, that you deliver as part of your company to customers starts with experience and ends with, experience. How has Gen AI been able to add to that, in terms of what it was already delivering? Do you see this being able to take it even further? And give us some examples of how it is being done today, based on your work with your global clientele.
Yeah, maybe less than a minute is too short for covering all of that. But I just say, look at the panel itself, right? The terms that we are using, right? The psycho-linguistic aspect of it, the contact center in a box part of it, and many other things that the folks have talked about. I think these were scenarios that were not possible maybe 18 months ago, right? And the advent of Gen AI, the power that it brings with it, and the creative unlock that's happening all around it, I think is opening up a lot of possibilities. We actually, today are at a point where we actually cannot envision what could happen in the future, right? What kind of newer experiences could come in. My colleague Prakash is sitting here. He likes to say this, very often, that, historically we were all as human beings trying to learn computer languages. And today with Gen AI, we're actually teaching computers human language. And once you cross that barrier, right, it just democratizes access to everyone. And like the NVIDIA CEO also talked about, right? I think going forward, you don't need to really learn programming. You don't have to be a software engineer, right? Every one of us can be a software engineer and can build applications, right? So I think the long story short of this is that the world of possibilities is wide here. I think we see that in every conversation with our customer, every project that we're delivering, the expectations about newer experiences. Obviously, a lot of this is POC right now, but as we scale, right, customers are going to be very, very demanding about the art of the possible, right? So we're all in that journey. I think the ecosystem is coming together, but the possibilities are endless. I think we are probably hitting an age where it's, right now we are probably, the world is human-led and assisted by AI, but I see a world in the next couple of years where it'll be AI-led and accelerated by humans. And I think that'll be an interesting time to live in, actually.
Thank you. Welcome to the machine species. But quick couple of questions. Lokesh, obviously, given the work that you're doing as a platform company, it's going to put a lot of people out of jobs. As a country, as the future of, we are a growing economy, and I don't need to speak about all of that, but how do you see this impacting the people, and what do you see happening in the future?
Going on automatically in the future rather than pressed by a human. But that apart, I think work changes. So work, each time we go through a transformation, I'll just take half a minute. Each time any transformation happens, the work itself changes. And that is what is going to happen even this time around. So, and in the previous panel, somebody was speaking about it. How the work changes is maybe, for example, much lesser recruiters are required, but to those people who are actually hiring, we need to create good experience. So stuff like that. So work itself will transform, and I don't see any reason that we should be worried about it.
Any last comments, Arjun, Jigar, Karthik?
So I just wanted to add one thing. Like he said, we are in a place where whatever is happening now would have never been possible in the past. And I started my company in a spare bedroom, 7 years ago, and we built to a 450 people team, and we raised $12 million from Kalari Capital, and all good in that. But along the way, the whole office was in my house, and so I found a new home for my parents, and they moved out. So I was running the company from my home in Chennai, and I think in Bangalore it caught on a little quicker, the startup culture, and people were accepting of such an office space, but not in Chennai, and definitely not iOS developers. We couldn't hire a single one. They would come, look at the space, and walk away, and I'd be seeing them from the balcony. And so right now I can probably invent somebody like Devin, and
We'll have to walk away from here very quickly. But on that note, Karthik, Jigar, just
Yeah, just one liner, right? Like, so you just equated Gen AI to the electricity, right? Imagine how many electricity board workers are there today. That's why it's not going to take away your jobs. It's going to create new jobs.
And finally, just in the terms of what this means for personalization and user experience, I mean, one very tangible, immediate thing we see coming up is like experience is becoming multimodal. right? It's not about just interacting via text or voice at one point in time, one modality of interaction, but text, voice, audio, visuals, right? All of it, as well as like, structured data, all of it coming and user is interacting in a much more, in a very hyper-personalized form, what suits them best at a given point in time.
Thank you. I thought I'll summarize the conversation, but I'm not going to take that time. Thank you, the distinguished panel here.